And hopefully in about 2 hours, that thing prints properly. And I have the thing I want it to make. If not, well, then I'll have to recalibrate that printer. So, welcome to Dreadnought Redux Part 6. You know, on the one hand, I'm going to miss this little spray booth I put together on a little shoestring budget. But on the other hand, I'm not going to miss bumping into that light or, you know, some of the ricketiness of it. I'm going to like having quite a bit more space in the new place. I'm pretty sure I'll have a bit more space. I may have to, you know, do a similar false wall setup like I've got now, but I should be able to do it in a way that ain't going to cause problems for anybody. Yep, there it goes. It's going to start its little thing now. And I'm going to give it a listen just to see if, there we go. I'm going to give a listen. If I start hearing it go pop, 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 it'll take it about a minute for the first layers, like each first. So the way this thing works is, so if you know what SLA printers are, they use a laser and they cure a resin. They had to move this little laser around. It's like a UV thing, you know, zap, 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 and they just move it across the their you know, print bed to make kind of draw the shape. And then it's like, you know, the platen, which it's building onto, is stuck to, pulls up and then goes back down, pulls up, goes back down, etc., etc. Well, the this thing has its, you know, positives and negatives. The positives being that you can get really intricate detail for a fairly low cost. The Photon, I like what I'm hearing. The Photon is similar. It uses what's called DLP, or digital light processing, I think is what that is, where they have an LCD screen that blocks a UV lamp, and the UV lamp shines into the LCD screen, and the LCD screen puts the whole image at once. The big plus of this is that instead of scanning this whole laser across, it does the whole thing at once. So you get all that intricacy with, but you also get the, you also get some speed, which is nice. But you might be more, I'm not sure if you'd be more restricted in resins because, you know, lower power UV lamp, yada yada. Those bits I'm not so sure on, so I don't want to comment too much. But that's in general how that 3D printer works. Unlike an FDM printer, which that's the one that everybody thinks of, that's the one that, you know, you take the spool of plastic, it shoves it through essentially a hot glue gun, and then just goes, and, you know, it draws your thing in 3 dimensions. That's also the other big downside to these resin-based printers, or the SLA, or the DLP, is that it's brittle. It really is brittle. I kid you not. I know, I'm sure you've seen other YouTube channels say, hey, I built this with this printer, and it's the same printer as mine, probably, and they got some good results. But again, the pieces are gonna be a bit more brittle, and those pieces that the guy built were pretty beefy. I mean, if I make my own tools, you know, call me prejudiced against, you know, the resin, but I'm prejudiced against the resin because in my experience it has proven quite brittle. I know that they had now, you know, technology grows all the time. I'd almost be willing to bet in like 10 years my statement becomes total bullshit, and like the resins are awesome. Or there's some new magical, you know, technology, or hell, who knows? No one can predict the future. Maybe we have the Star Trek replicator at that point. Yeah, I can see that shaking some stuff up. That's besides the point. But I figured I'd give you that little lesson in DLP and a brief introduction to Dreadnought Part 6. So that's going to print. I'm going to open this thing up here, and then I'm going to put in the engine, and I think start actually populating some of this. Is that going to give me a nice look? Can I raise this a little more? Give this a nice start to everything. Alright. And it wasn't even all that ranty. This is only 4 minutes of our time used up. Okay, well, I don't want to use up too much more, so I'm going to go ahead and start moving some stuff around. Alright, so there I go. I empty out the boat, and then I start looking around at just how things stack up.
and just again seeing how this whole thing kind of goes together. Hemming and hawing a bit of, do I want to add certain details or not? I think it's here at this point I decide to, yep, this is where I decide to cover up those things and reincorporate some artistic licenses, I'm calling it. Because I wasn't sure if these things were that thin or not. But I figured since it was already, it already, had these exposed and looking kind of off, I figured I should just add these top pieces back in to, remake this layer of coal bunkers, I guess. So there we go. Now that looks a lot better. And I'm just following up, making the walls now. And, yep, 2 of them, using the pieces themselves as a guide. Just, saves me from having to measure everything out with the calipers again. There I am using nice tweezers this time. And, yep, gluing it all in. And after looking all that up, and hemming and hawing, I move on to something else.
Okay. Now, after that little bit of, working on this and then realizing 1, battery power was low, and 2, probably more importantly, I forgot to, bring my plans down. Here it is. And that looks almost perfect, like it always does when it first comes out. But we shall see if it's actually good after I've cut some of these free. Now, you'll notice those little supports there. That's going to flux at the details a bit. I'm really wishing I didn't have to do that, but circles are kind of a pain in the neck for this guy. Because you know how I said you got to support those minimum areas? Well, yeah, circles tend to create those like nothing else can. So I had to play some games of where exactly to put some of these supports. Looks like a really thin layer. Okay, that's great for the support being thin, but, well, I'm going to go ahead and do the sane and reasonable thing. Use this to scoop them up. And I'm going to dump them in here and run them through an ultrasonic rinse.
And behold, as I go back to fast motion, close up the printer, and then proceed to fill up the ultrasonic bath. Unfortunately, it's not of the fun drinkable alcohol, but this is what you use to clean the thing up. And then I set the thing for about 720 seconds and have it keep going.
All right. So, as you can see there, it's in there and it is cooking. It's curing in UV light. Hooray. All right. So, right there is yet more 3D printed parts. Now, just as a thing, I am only going to use 1 set of these. So I'm only going to use 1 of these and 1 of these. But there's a reason I printed several of them. And it's a counter to a thing that I have seen on a lot of 3D printers, where sometimes, for some reason, part of it doesn't want to stick, or part of it doesn't want to, work right or something. What I do, in this case, is I have my printer print out more than what I need. So, man, that's a similar approach to what I do for the photo etch. I have it make several sets of staircases, and I kind of needing more of them anyway. Yeah, that doesn't help me much, but it does help me a little bit at least. Yeah, but I do that to handle what I call attrition, which is if I mess one of these up, it doesn't go to hell in a handbasket on me. So, I let him cure for a little bit. I think the UV thing had us set for 30 minutes. I didn't wait that long. Didn't feel the need. Probably a good thing. I don't need to wait super long, This doesn't have to be, like, all super strong. I found if I wait the full 30 minutes, I guess brittle anyway. That's neither here nor there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and cut some of these loose. I'll show you that bit on the time-lapse, and maybe with some luck, I'll glue this in there tonight.
Boom. Okay, so here I am, cutting these things loose from their supports, using these, sprue cutters that I've got to cut a lot of these off. I have to kind of cut it out in sections, separate a couple of them, then remove another kind of line, I guess you could say, of these supports, then, remove that base at the bottom just to keep getting access, and slowly but surely I end up extracting it. Then I'm just using this scalpel to shave away some of those nibs, get them off there. Again, as I've pointed out before, This material, while it gets you great detail, it's not the strongest for actually building something, in my opinion. There I am sanding it down, getting things nice and smooth. Now that I've gotten it down, and I had to print a right side and a left side to this. I did that just because of the way certain pieces faced. And my first model of this actually had a bunch of little side tanks on there to represent various things that go on the walls. But because that didn't really work out to add in, like just the way that wouldn't have printed easy from what I could tell, is I didn't do it. So now I'm just using the little mini drop applicator to try to get these on there. Try to get them reasonably straight. I think I get them in an orientation I don't quite like. Yep, so there I go. I peel them off. I re-put them on. I get them a little better aligned. And again, I use that super glue and the little drop applicator to get that on there. I must have done a bit of fiddling with that drop applicator. Probably just to get things lined up or cleaning probably is what I did there. And after getting that, I see that everything lines up. So I put that all back in there. Looks nice. Gonna marvel my own handiwork and hemming and hawing, using the nice curved tweezers to once again move that over. Now I move the camera. That little brief look at my face. I probably dropped the camera. There I go. I look at some things again just to think of what's going on, and I drink a bit of the nice alcohol that you can drink. Going right through the pages, flipping around, and just getting a good look at the actual engine room itself. This book, by the way, Anatomy of the Ship, I plan on getting the copy that's for Bismarck as well. I'm real glad I got it for this Dreadnought. I would not be able to do this without it unless I had, access to other plans. But at that point, I'd be a lot less, accurate. A lot more stuff would have to be made up. And this would go a lot slower because I'd be studying a lot more naval history. Which, while it can be interesting, it's also not really my forte. Although I have one little history story I could tell at some point. Maybe in another time lapse. So as you saw, I was, super gluing that was a bit of solder. Actually, that's leaded solder, so, not the nicest around kids. But, I had it around, and I'm using now, again, that fine dropper tool to, once I've curved this these pieces of lead wire, to put them in the positions about where various major pipes for this engine would be. I guess I guess that's most of it there. I'm cutting things to length. I guess I can tell you this brief story. So, in my line of work, one of the things you come across, one of the symbols on a mechanical drawing, looks like an actual crosshairs, right? This is for position tolerance. And the reason they had this is that, here we go. So I'm using the pin vise there. I'm going to drill some guide holes for these wires. But to finish my story, the reason it looks like that is actually that they came up with the idea behind position tolerance for building some of the first torpedoes because they weren't shooting straight and they had to, think this thing out and through. Anyways, so now back to the model. Hope you enjoyed your little history lesson there. I take the piece of wire that I put in with that guided hole, glue it in place, bend it appropriately, and now again I am adding all the other little bits and bobs, wire by wire, to get the major pipes. There's input pipes, there's output pipes. So there's that. And it's really the big thing to that. So you'll see me remark in a few moments of how it looks like it's got a lot of horsepower, and I actually will go and hunt through the book and just to see, because I'm curious, what is the horses in this thing? There's like 23,000 or something like that, or maybe less, maybe more. We'll see it in a moment, but, again, with the glue, the pin vise, what I do with the pin vise is I drill a guide hole a little bigger than the diameter of the wire. I slip the diameter of the wire in, and I bend appropriately with the tweezers and stuff. And then at the very end of it, I'll cut it to an appropriate length using the snips. And of course, securing it with the super glue, and either I dab the wire directly into the super glue, or I use a little tiny tool that, holds a drop at the end of it. So I'm about the end of this time lapse, and you're probably going to hear me tell you in slow time what I just told you now.
I'll be honest. It looks like a V8 engine. It looks like a V8 engine. How many horses were in this frickin' thing? I really want to know now. It's gonna say it somewhere in this book. This book was nice. It gave a bunch of information. Where is it? Oh, neat pictures. This will be good for later. None of these ended up showing me anything indicative of whatchamacallit. Environment, accommodation, machinery, steering gear, fuel capacity, particulars of machinery, boilers, anything. Machinery, shafting, yada yada. No. Designed SHP, which I'm assuming is going to be something on the lines of shaft horsepower. That's an assumption on my part. 23,000 horses. That looks like it'd have 23,000 horses. Okay, enough of my silliness. Back to modeling.
Alrighty. So, now pouring myself a little more of the alcohol you can drink. And then thinking of how exactly do I want to go about getting this thing kind of painted and maybe some finer details in there. So now what I do is I start looking around to see what things will fit where. And thinking of how to add some different pieces and different bits of equipment. So you know how I mentioned I had little things that would have represented various side tanks to this apparatus in my original 3D prints, but upon looking in the 3D printer, couldn't think of a good way to orient it. Well, I took apart some of the spare turbine pieces I had, and I print those just because I call it attrition, but you're not going to get a perfect print on everything, in my opinion, so better to print like a couple extras. And here I am just shaping it with the scalpel and getting it until it'll be just about the right size for me to put in just the right place. There we are. Yep. Fit it in, drop a piece, put another one in, secure it, and then, get another replacement. There we go. All right, and then, here we go, cleaning out the little tool there. It's a good tool. It does a job, and it does it pretty well. It's a lot better than the bottle itself, but, that's life. That happens. Minor annoyance with the bottle. But, yeah, so there I go. You'll see I have an actual razor saw there. Yeah, it was a pretty neat thing. So here I am. What I'm doing now is, in that drawing, I saw that there were several evident walkways of what was in this engine. And so I'm putting in the walkways, and yeah. After I get the walkways in there, there's also like a platform that would be higher up. Now I'm doing something, just trying to think of what exactly I'm trying to cajole into the very right place. Yeah, I'm putting in something that would be representative of a, or I might be putting in something that would have been representative of a elevator. I may also be using some of the plastic for an elevated platform. That's what. Okay, so I'm using this as an elevated platform. I'm using the actual pipes, kind of where it would sit within the plan. And okay, so now this is actually okay, and that's control panels, like vent. That's going to end up being valve panels, and I'm putting those at the ends. Those get just right up against the wall is where those they are against the wall from what I can tell on the plan. But these are going to be just about against the wall because, well, this is real life in 700th scale, and there's only so precise that you can get without using some pretty interesting tools that, well, I'll be honest, I don't have access to because I don't have millions of dollars to spend on a machining center. But I have plenty of time to spend on making other little bits of this. And I think part of this is I either made a piece of kit for something, or I actually made a Alright, yeah, so there was a little elevator piece there, and I added it in. I was waiting for when I was going to do that, because I thought I did something on those lines. And there I am, I'm checking the fit, and the fit looks pretty good. Hemming and hawing about what to do next, and I think this is when I might decide it's time to paint the thing up. gets to do a little bit of reinforcing the top piece there and making it a bit more even before I go ahead and start painting the very bottom of this whole engine assembly and actually get the engine to start looking nice and right. More hemming, more high, more looking at the book to see is there any more details I can add anywhere. All right. So here's the, part where paint starts to fly, and some of the last painting I've done and will be doing in my current shop. So I've actually, fortunately, ended up in a position where I could actually make a additional episode of this playlist, just because of a kind of happy accident in the editing of where the next time lapse ends. But that's neither here nor there. As you see, I've primed this. Again, I used about a 50-50 mix of the leveling thinner and the surfacer. Now I'm just cleaning it out. That's what I use the normal thinner for. The normal thinner is a little cheaper. And I just manually actuate that needle, wash things with the paper towel, really polish the needle, stroke the needle. Okay, I have fun here. You can tell me if you dislike it and I'll stop. But yeah, now I just test that out again, make sure it's able to spray. And then I start mixing into the actual pod itself, which is why I like the gravity-fed airbrush so much, or at least one of the reasons I like it. The paints themselves. And I'm just using a little Q-tip thing to get drops of the paint in there. I should probably get an actual pipette or something. But that's really the $1,000 solution to the 2-cent problem. So I drop more of the black in there. So I must have used I had a little quick disconnect thing there for the air supply, so I can actually put it aside while still keeping the paint in there. And now I actually painted over silver. And the reason I chose silver as my starting color is because, and I mentioned it in this next slow segment, is I don't think that they would have painted the inside of coal bunkers. I mean, we don't really need all this paint, falling into our coal, because the coal is just going to bump up against it. I may or may not also paint another slightly darker layer than I'd originally did of the silver. Again, more going by eye than anything else for how dark to get it. But that's another bit of cleaning I do. Again, I run the thinner through, then I clean the needle, I clean, the inside, partially disassemble to clean. This isn't like I'm doing gloss, so I need to be super clean. And here I am setting up for the slow-mo section. Hey, alright. The audio on this thing uneffed itself, so yay! We did it! It's silver! Needs a lot of details added, but a lot of that compartment's gonna be that silver color because, well, I don't think they'd paint the inside of coal bunkers. I wouldn't waste paint there. Yeah, I really wouldn't. I'd go for one of them quote-unquote stainless steels if I had access to it. Although, I wouldn't be surprised to find that this ship must have had sacrificial anodes or something somewhere. That's my guess. I don't know for sure. Any historians in the house want to totally contradict me or confirm? I have a book, but I can't be bothered to read it. Maybe I should. I might say, I don't know. But yeah. So now, the question is, what other colors do I paint? Well, for those of you who are new here, I actually did some research. You see this green that I've picked, right? I didn't actually pull the use of the green color mainly out of my ass. The brown, the blue, those I pulled out of my ass. But the green, I didn't entirely do that. You see, what I did is I actually said, okay, can I get any color pictures of old-timey battleships that would have been from this time? Forgive me while I turn off the compressor. And I was able to. And it was a Japanese ship. I was like, okay, why is this? Why is this? Come to find out, the Brits built some of Japan's ships way back in the early 1900s. So I was like, oh, they'd probably build them pretty similar to how they built their own. And the ship interior I saw was this kind of greenish color. I guess it makes sense. Everything, the internals of a lot of things are green, actually, now that I think about it.
Must be like the chromate or phosphate they use for sun protection. Yeah, that's got to be it, because there's this like green mil-spec coating on some connectors that I've seen, and it's just like, it's not RoHS compliant. That's why that's good. No, I'm sure there's plenty of good RoHS compliant stuff, but yeah, it was it was either chromate or a phosphate. Cadmium. I think it was a cadmium green. Yeah, you think about it. That makes a lot of sense, because you're in a saltwater environment, you want to minimize the corrosion. Huh. I'll have to look that up now. Maybe. I don't know. But now I have to ask the question, what did their engine rooms look like? Because, well, this thing looks okay in silver. I'd really like it to look like it actually had all those horses, you know? Like, as close as I can to accurate, the better. Speaking of accurate, I'm still not entirely sure if I want to artistically license these coal bunkers, or actually do it, like, to the most accurate that I could. Because to do that would require that these side guys actually be cut down to, like, just walls, from what I can tell. Because the way the book portrays it, it's as if it was actually like that. Like, it was, the coal bunkers were a solid thing, went all the way up the side of the ship, and there's maybe a couple of places where coal would be, like, scattered to make a hole for the guys to dig it out or something. I honestly don't know. And then that would explain, like, the coal trunks, I guess, or something, or escape trunks, I guess, that they called them, where you had these, like, apparent, from what I could read of the print, pathways leading up from the bottom of the ship going up. But that's enough technical jargon for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and actually try and look up and see if I can't get a picture of these old-timey engine rooms before I make something totally inappropriate. Because I'm wondering what I can get away with painting brass to add some liveliness to this, you know, piece of the diorama. Or, I guess it is kind of a diorama now, but model nonetheless. Alright. Peace out for now.